It's a nice bag. Like to take?
Hallo, 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 hallo. Hallo und
Hallo, wer ist denn da?
Hallo, hallo.
Hallo, hallo.
Hallo, 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 hall.
Hallo, 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 hallo.
So, jetzt müssten wir das Licht wieder anhaben und den Ton bräuchten wir auch. Ja, das erstmal als Klick zur Begrüßung zu der heutigen Veranstaltung, die der Anfang von einem zweitägigen Workshop ist, der sich mit Medienkunst im weitesten Sinne beschäftigt. So, man kann mich jetzt sehen, okay, und jetzt kann man mich auch hören. So, wunderbar. Ja, guten Abend erstmal zu unserem zweitägigen Workshop über Van Gogh TV, Piazza Luterale und über den Erhalt von Medienkunst im Großen und Ganzen. Bevor wir anfangen, gleich mal eine Frage ins Publikum. Who doesn't speak German in here? Can I see a show of hands? Well, I think that's a sizable group because we have visitors from Poland right now. So I think we're gonna, flexible as we are, we're gonna be accommodating to our guests and do this in English. I hope nobody has a problem. Or we do it in Spanish, all right. Or we do it in Esperanto, or we do it in English. Yeah, so welcome to tonight's event. Tonight we're going to look at some of the works of Van Gogh TV. They did a project in 1992 at Documenta. For 100 days they had their own programs on television at Dreisat every day. And the interesting thing about this was that the audience was allowed to participate in the show. And today we're going to see some clips from this television show where we see how this was done, because there were different ways how the audience could interact with the show. And to my mind, this is an early example of social media. That's why I got interested in it and decided to study it. And together with the University of Bonn, we applied for funding. And now for a year and a half, we've been studying Van Gogh TV. And tonight we invited 3 of the members to Mainz, who are still sitting in the dark. For some reason, maybe we can also put a light so we can see our guest here. No. Kentel.
And in the meanwhile, I can mention that tomorrow we're going to have the second part of the workshop where we're going to look at the possibilities to preserve media art, and in particular net art and net culture, because right now a lot of this is getting lost due to neglect or due to bit rot. And we have a group of international guests who are going to talk about their individual endeavors to keep net culture alive and accessible to future generations. But because right now you might get the idea that this is going to be the dark ages of the future and nobody knows what happens because digital information gets lost very easily, and right now it happens. So this is turning into this really cliffhangerish type of thing. Is he going to manage to do it or not? We did a long rehearsal yesterday where everything worked just fine. Big hand for our light. So, and now we have our 3 guests for tonight. From my side of the stage, first we have Benjamin Heidersberger, we have Mike Hens, and we have Karl Dudesek, who together with Salvatore Vanasco, who cannot be with us tonight, organized and produced Piazza Virtuale during Documenta in 1992. And before I introduce them in greater detail, I'd like to show you a trailer of the material we've gathered so far. This is archival material from the actual show, plus material from the interviews we did with a good number of the participants. So I hope that can serve as an introduction to this whole project.
Diese 100 Tage von Dreisat als verschiedene Zeitfenster zugewiesen gekriegt und parallel dazu gab es ja die Ausstrahlung auf Olympus, ich glaube, dass wir im Schnitt 7 Stunden am Tag gesendet haben.
Willkommen in unserer Schule. Mein Name ist Professor Fox und ich werde Ihnen in der nächsten Zeit das ABC der Piazza Virtuale beibringen. Sie werden malen, musizieren und auch schreiben lernen, auf eine ganz neue Art. Sie werden Maschinen steuern, die Sie vorher noch nie gesehen haben. Lernen, lernen und nochmals lernen.
Fernsehen war ja für uns nur eine Abstrahlfläche, also was uns interessiert hat, war ja der Raum dahinter, also der Kommunikationsbereich. Das Fernsehen war ja nichts anderes als, dass man sagt, das ist da die Spitze des medialen Eisbergs, wo halt die meisten Augen drauf sind, wo man die meisten Leute erreicht.
Ja, also wir haben hier die Sendung Coffee House. Coffee House hat 3 verschiedene Ebenen, da sind die Voice Lines, das heißt, da können Leute über Stimme miteinander sprechen, dann haben wir die Modem Lines, das sind die unten in Gelb in diesem viereckigen Fenster sind. Und da, wo ich jetzt bin, ist normalerweise das Fax. Das heißt, da können Leute Faxe hinschicken und so diese 3 Ebenen miteinander kommunizieren.
Also ich kann es jetzt nicht in Tagen mehr abschätzen, die Erinnerung habe ich nicht, aber es waren bestimmt über 20 Tage, wo jede Sendung nur Hallo, 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 Hallo. Das war der Hallo-Sender.
Hallo, ich bin Andreas.
Morgen! Morgen ist mein Name immer noch. Möchtet ihr euch alle tatsächlich das Armutszeugnis ausstellen und immer nur Hallo sagen?
Alle Menschen haben uns beschimpft, belächelt, lächerlich gemacht. Ich fand, genau das wollten wir, nämlich den Bodensatz erreichen, aus dem Kultur sich entwickeln kann.
Also die Piazza war so sehr viele sagen, das war so ein schwarzes Loch. Ja. Das, was da war, hat dieses schwarze Loch also ja nicht kaschiert. Oder es hat da keine Ablenkungsmanöver gegeben. Also die Leute sind irgendwo reingefallen und mussten selber auf ihren Füßen und Händen und sprechend und hörend und sehend irgendwie weitergehen.
Jawohl, weg mit den Hochschule. Mach mal die Musik aus. Ich glaube, es redet keiner, ne?
Es war schon klar, dass das Problem entstehen könnte, dass sich Leute aufschalten auf den Sender, so wie das heute bei Facebook diskutiert wird. Das ist ja das Irre. Das sind all die Sachen, die heute uns auf den Tisch fallen, die sind damals im Ansatz erkennbar gewesen. Dass jemand das ausnutzt, um Dinge zu verkünden oder von sich zu geben, die nicht in Ordnung sind.
Der Unterschied ist, dass du ja im Fernsehen, wenn das Fernsehen live bist du derjenige, bist du erfassbar, also erfassbar, als Gesicht in Video oder als Stimme. Und dadurch, dass das noch dazu interaktiv war, konnte man direkt antworten und die Frage stellen, ja wieso denn soll der? Und warum machst du das oder wieso und so weiter und so fort. Das ist ja der große Unterschied zu was wir da gemacht haben, zu den viele Jahre später heraufkommenden unsozialen Medien. Die sind A nicht live, die sind B nicht interaktiv und die Leute erfahren da ja nichts direkt. Also es gibt keine direktes emotionales Feedback. Ne?
Wir wollen jetzt mal ein paar Kopfbedeckungsarten zeigen. Ihr könnt uns gerne anrufen und eure Fragen, die sicherlich sehr heiß und die ihr sicherlich habt, auch stellen.
Ich glaube, es gibt so Momente im Leben, da weiß man, dass man irgendwie auf der Goldader sitzt. So. Und da entwickelt sich auch so eine eigene Sicherheit draus im Umgang miteinander und im Umgang mit anderen. Und
Das war, glaube ich, so das empfand ich so war das allgemeine Gefühl. Also wir machen jetzt genau das Richtige zur richtigen Zeit und das ist einfach so.
So, schönen guten Morgen. Hier sind wir jetzt an der Sackgasse des Rechners gelandet. Wir werden jetzt ein anderes Programm starten.
Und ich bin dann jeden Monat in 8 verschiedene oder 10 verschiedene Städte gefahren, immer durch die Welt gefahren. Die ganzen Privatbeziehungen sind irgendwie belastet oder den Bach runtergegangen. Karel konnte nur noch in die Sauna sich entspannen. Also alle sahen scheiße aus, waren scheiße drauf. Und wenn wir zusammen waren, haben wir uns nur gegenseitig angekotzt, weil wir die Einzigen waren, wo wir das konnten. Und das war unsexy. Das war absolut. Und wir waren dann auch, also ich war ungefähr ein Jahr komplett ausgebrannt. Nach Piazza Vittoria.
Mach deinen Plattenspieler jetzt an, genau jetzt. Leg dir den Sound drauf, den du gut findest und tanz. Feier heute einfach. Heute ist ein unheimlich besonderer Tag.
Ich feiere nächste Woche.
Was feierst du denn nächste Woche?
Meine Hochzeit.
Deine Hochzeit, yo!
Gogh TV haben verschiedene Strömungen der Avantgarde, von der Performance über die Medienkunst sozusagen vorangebracht, haben dadurch eben geschafft, Errungenschaften der einen Kunst zur Errungenschaft der anderen Kunst zu werden und haben mit diesen hybriden Formen und Übertragungen etwas vorbereitet, was dann eine neue Bewegung in die sozialen Medien mit der neuen technischen Möglichkeit der Internet abgeschöpft haben.
Okay, that's already the next clip. And my microphone is not on, but now it is.
Haben Sie den Anschalter ausgemacht?
Nee, jetzt ist es wieder an eigentlich. 1, 2, 3. But in the meanwhile, when I'm silenced, you are our guest of honor. Do you want to say something to introduce yourself and the project to the audience?
I would like to address today, and maybe we could interact with mind and idea and discourse about because there is also a different generation here than we are. Yeah, younger generation. So my question would be how you could imagine to do something like that, like Piazza Vittoria today in 2019, 2021, with the significance and grinding between politicians, society, industry, and media entertainment. The second thing I would address is the importance of the political importance of the project. It was a very significant breakthrough. Without that, somebody of us three are politically motivated. We have not been in the left Green Party or against the nuclear industry, but the political significance of the project is, to give an example, to sidestep all the establishment of media, of legislative, of executive. I mean, somebody who is working in that field knows what that means. The third point is to talk and to raise the conceptual consequence, the conceptual discipline which was raised by Benjamin and his technical imagination, and how that was able to live, or how that was able to be followed up in the whole project, which was not easy. Then the fourth, and I'm already on the end, the tension between the video art scene and the media art scene. We have been just coming out of the video art, and maybe Mike can say something how that tension was. I mean, video artists like Namjoon Park and all others, which did some media projects, but basically it was video art, and that was a very elite community without any interface to outside. Yeah? And it was still a community which have been there to entertain the public, basically, even how abstract or arty the videos have been.
Okay.
And on the end, I would like to address the entertainment factor, because it's a very important part that we try to radically neglect the entertainment factor of television. And yeah, this is okay. And that had a reason why that was, and yeah.
Thank you. That much from you. You're sitting there like in church, by the way. It looks like you're sitting there behind you. Anyway, yeah, thanks for that. Since you mentioned that there's a whole crowd here of younger people, we should probably mention again or make very clear that this was before the internet. I think you in Kassel had an internet connection already, but it was before the World Wide Web. It was before there was no Facebook, no YouTube, no Twitter, no nothing. So this was one of the first attempts to actually become part of a mass medium, to use a medium not as a broadcast medium as the traditional way, but to really engage the audience in that. And yeah, mostly on the television, but as you saw already, there was this computer chat via FidoNet, via mailbox, not via the internet yet. That aspect was already covered too. Mike, do you want to add to that?
Well, I think important is to say that we were a group of artists who worked in group together, so that where we came out was basically from art, from performance, from video art, as Carl said, from music, and we got into some technical devices because we wanted to use it, because we wanted to expand performance, because what was important in that time is also to create your independent production possibilities, which at that time were controlled by national TV, national radio, and there was a difference between what is so-called serious art and popular art, which is still also in the copyright, how it is paid. Serious art is paid more than popular art. So this was one of the topics. How to get into the media was very difficult, was controlled, was extremely expensive. And we were part of the generation who tried to create their own technical tools to realize things. And so it started very early with pirate radios, pirate TVs. And it's also important to say that till the 90s in Germany, there was no private TV. There was in Italy, there was offshore, there was in France.
Holland.
And Holland started too, and we were starting in an art context with pirate TV and radio, which was a bit action program for many people. And from these kind of activism, but which was art activism, so also the world, Van Gogh TV was founded for one reason, because the first transmitters, we got it from Dutch people. But for everybody in the world, it was clear that the guy who cut off his ear was an artist. And so it was not that it's clear if you call yourself Van Gogh TV, it's an artistic thing. And then from the performance, producing ourselves, interactive with people, always involving people, which has been very early in performances, we got to the technical level where interactivity was with the audience, and then at a certain point where the whole stage was given to the audience, so expanded performance also on the level that the audience was performing and not us anymore. In Piazza Vettuoli we had more or less, we were not MCs anymore, We were censorship, we were controllers, we were coaches to help the people to get on this platform. And so that was different steps of evolution in the history also of an artist group trying different platforms, and especially independent platforms in collaboration with official institutions who were not used to it, in that sense also quite scared about what it was going to be.
Okay, thank you. Since you mentioned the need to create your own devices and your own technical infrastructure, the next clip I'm going to show is from a television report on the project, and you will see a lot of the equipment that was used. It is, you see, they set up this container city next to Friedrichshain in Kassel, where the documenta took place at that time, and a good number of shots where you see the actual studio that was used to create these shows. Benjamin, since you were also very instrumental in creating the technical infrastructure, do you want to say anything about that before we watch the clip, or should we watch it first?
Well, maybe just a few words. There are two things that I find pretty important. Is we are all dwarfs standing on the shoulders of giants, as Newton said. So there was some development before. I mean, Robotnik TV in Holland did something, as we already heard. And of course, you absorb somehow what's happening in the world and transform that into something else, which was basically my role in the project, was the technology interactive part. The other thing is, it was already mentioned a little bit here, but this was a collective work of a big team of between, let's say, 30 and 100 people that worked in different areas, in different locations on the same thing. And to make it coherent is probably one of the wonders of this project, that it happened. But it's not that I feel unwell, but I just want to mention there's a big team behind it who made it possible that this project worked.
Yeah, and you will actually see some of these people in the clip that's about to...
It's also about authorship, actually, which is a really important point in art. Is authorship is a very important point to be able to name the person who creates something, and I want to dissolve that a little bit. We were this group, of course, we were the 4 people who developed the core idea, but then there was a big team who made it possible.
All right.
Piazza Virtuale, der befindet euch auf dem interaktiven Fernsehkanal von Gogh TV, live von der Documenta 9 aus Kassel. Was demnächst auf eurem Bildschirm erscheint, könnt ihr selbst bestimmen. Ihr erreicht die Piazza Virtuale über Fax, Modem, Mailbox und vor allem über euer Telefon.
Aus diesen Containerboxen auf der Documenta kommt das Fernsehprojekt Piazza Virtuale, das heißt künstlicher Marktplatz. Ein multimediales Kunstprojekt der Hamburger Gruppe von Gogh TV. Täglich wird es europaweit via Satellit ausgestrahlt. Über ein Jahr wurde dieses Pilotprojekt in St. Georg ausgetüftelt mit viel Idealismus und Computer-Know-how. Kein normales Fernsehen, sondern interaktives Fernsehen.
Letzten Endes ist natürlich das, was im Fernsehen kommt, immer Fernsehen. Aber Piazza Virtuale ist mehr. Also Piazza Virtuale versucht, den Gedanken der Piazza auf das Medium Fernsehen zu übertragen. Also die Piazza als Schnittstelle des öffentlichen Lebens, wo sich Menschen treffen, flirten, spielen. Das versuchen wir im Fernsehen zu machen, dadurch, dass Zuschauer miteinander im Fernsehen reden können.
Wie das funktioniert? Nun, zum Beispiel kann jeder von zu Hause auf dem interaktiven Marktplatz Dinge kaufen oder verkaufen über Telefon, Fax, Modem oder Bildtelefon. Die Anrufer werden über den Zentralcomputer miteinander vernetzt. Und auch das chaotischste Marktgeschrei ordnet sich von selbst.
Oh? Das ist aus der Schweiz, das ist noch aus der Schweiz. Mein Gott, da hört ja keiner auf den anderen.
Ja, hallo. Wer ist da aus Berlin?
Ich bin Andreas aus Berlin. Hallo.
Hier ist die Mediengestaltung.
Die machen bestimmt Verhaltensforschung mit uns. Ja, hier ist der Frank aus Hamburg.
Aus Hamburg?
Hamburger.
Richtig. Ich verstehe noch mal jemand.
Aus Hamburg kommen die ganz unschönen und hübschen Männer.
Ja, das ist doch so weit weg.
Zuschauer aus jedem Winkel Europas interaktiv zu vernetzen, das ist eine Vision des Van Gogh-Fernsehens. Hier können 4 Zuschauer über Telefon gemeinsam Musik machen. Jede Tastatur bespielt ein Instrument. Eine Entdeckungsreise auf der Telefontastatur, die sich so anhört. Gemeinsam malen, statt mit Pinsel, mit dem Telefon, vielleicht etwas unsinnlich, aber bestimmt kommunikativer als die einsamen Videospiele. Vor allem die junge Generation probiert neugierig die neue Vielfalt des Telefons. Auch diese Roboterkamera wird über die häusliche Telefontastatur gesteuert. So kann der Zuschauer von zu Hause den Van Gogh-Leuten in Kassel bei der Arbeit über die Schulter linsen. Nichts bleibt dem Zuschauer hier verborgen, im Gegensatz zum normalen Fernsehen. Piazza Virtuale, Spielkram oder innovatives Forschungsprojekt? Sicher beides. Zwar steckt dieses Experiment noch in den Kinderschuhen, aber so viel ist klar. Multimedia ist das Motto der 90er Jahre. Schade, dass gerade die Medienstadt Hamburg sich in diesem Projekt so wenig engagiert.
Uns ist bewusst von der Vision, dass es zukünftig so sein wird, dass sich Bildtelefone einschalten werden, dass sich Laufbilder von zu Hause einschalten werden. Und da wird sich natürlich die Kultur, die virtuelle Kultur, die Oberfläche, der Text, das Bild noch wesentlich mehr verändern, als es schon hier passiert.
Das Bildtelefon überraschte selbst den Bundespräsidenten.
Guten Tag, woher wissen Sie, dass ich das bin? Und sind Sie in Kassel?
Ja, wir sind in Kassel auf der Documenta jetzt.
Sehr gut. Ja. Das habe ich in meinem Leben noch nie gemacht, was ich hier mache.
Aha.
Ja.
Also weiter.
Yeah, this is the only clip that doesn't have subtitles, don't worry. But yeah, that's a television report, and I found that only recently on one of these tapes that we're looking at. Do you remember what station broadcast that?
It must be Hamburg station, because if they are in Hamburg, so Nord, was gibt's in Nord?
NDR. Yeah. But you don't recall this at all, because some of the footage also appears again in your own film about the project later, so there must be some very close relationship. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to look at some of these technical aspects in greater detail later on, but you already saw that there was this technical possibility to interact with the program via the then new touchtone technology. You could steer the camera, for example, or you could paint, you could make music together, and this was actually something you devised that didn't happen before, that didn't exist before. Let me just finish that because that's what's interesting about the project. On the one level, you have these technical innovations and these technical ways of interaction, but then there was, of course, also the audience interaction. And at this time, I think interaction was a very loaded term and very, buzzword, but you took it in two very different directions. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, but let's start with this innovative interface that you devised.
Well, the touchtone is actually a pretty old invention. I think it was invented in the 50s by AT&T. And what it does, it basically projects a matrix of frequencies on X and Y of the telephone keyboard. So when you press a key, actually two tones are played at the same time. And this can be decoded easily, and these two tones never happen in normal voice communication. So the system was used for dialing, and what we did was we invented an interface that decoded these touch tones, translated them into a special protocol, which was basically written by Christian Wolf, who's in San Francisco now, and used this protocol to control the studio and events on the studio, mainly by Macromind Director at the time.
Christian Wolf, who you also saw in the clip previously, by the way, was responsible for the audio part of the Blu-ray standard. So a lot of these techies, especially, really made a career into in the software and in the computer world. Yeah, anything else you would like to add to this description, or should we're going to watch some examples in greater detail later? It doesn't seem like it. Then I'd like to show another clip, because we are in Mainz, and the television station that was behind all that, Dreisat, is part of ZDF. They're both, unfortunately, both the editor who commissioned the whole program and the lady who was in charge of, or the young producer at that time, was responsible of censoring some of the calls that got out of hand, you know, when people called in to yell Heil Hitler or obscenities, that was censored, you know, unimaginable today in, you know, social media of today. You know, it took Facebook 10 years to figure out that they needed something like content moderation, but here it was in place from almost the first day.
Yeah,
so
maybe a small funny thing when we both went to signing the contract at Mainz, the general director who signed the contract
that's in the clip actually.
Said, so what would happen if nobody is participating? And we said to him, yeah, then the screen is black. And you can imagine for an entertainer who needs to entertain Germany so that things are going productive forward. That was the biggest nightmare. But for some reason, which is for me not clear, maybe because he was from the CDU, he signed the contract. I think a social democrat would never do this.
At that time.
All right, let's watch the tip. And for the audience that's not from Germany, both Dreisat and ZDF are public stations. So this that also was partly because it was sensitive. You know, if things would get out of hand, then it would really reflect badly on these stations that were funded by their audience.
Dreisat gab es ja ein Jahr Kühlschrank nach Hotel Bombino. Da gab es ja diesen Bild-Zeitungsskandal. Habt ihr das nicht mitgekriegt? Hotel Bombino haben wir gesendet und dann gab es ja auch die Stunde der Wahrheit. Was würdest du nie tun? Und dann hat ein Kandidat gesagt, ich würde nie den Arsch von Helmut Kohl auswischen. Dann war am nächsten Tag Bild-Zeitung skandalöse Fernsehsendung, finanziert von Siemens und Ars Electronica. Siemens hat angeblich so und so viel verloren. Und dann saßen die Intendanten die letzten 2 Tage beim Ausschaltknopf, wo wir dann Witze drüber gemacht haben und das auch thematisiert haben. Und dann waren wir so, als Jungtalente waren wir dann erstmal durch.
Aber das ganze Auftreten war doch deutlich, das von österreichischen Performance-Künstlern, und das war mit sag ich mal, gut katholisch geführten zentralen Sendeanstalt wie dem ZDF erstmal gewöhnungsbedürftig. Weil wir natürlich hier im Rahmen der Kunst- und Kulturberichterstattung alle schrägen Vögel hatten, aber das waren schon besondere Kameradinnen.
Das ist eine ganz andere Kultur damals gewesen, also die nicht nach Einschaltquoten gelächzt hat. Ne? Aber die haben auch nicht kapiert, was wir da machen. Ja? Das war die schönste Geschichte in diesem Projekt ist ja, dass die Vertragsunterzeichnung beim ZDF, wo der alte Herr Intendant dann die Frage stellt, ja, meine Herren, was sehen wir dann am Bildschirm? Und wir haben gesagt, das wissen wir nicht. Und das ist natürlich für einen Broadcaster der Albtraum. Und dann hat er aber da gesagt, okay, dann beschreiben wir das. Also das ist unvorstellbar. Ja? Also der bricht dann, also eine gesamte Welt, ja, wird ungültig erklärt, ja? Also jetzt mal extrem gesagt, und der unterschreibt quasi ein leeres Bild. Ja?
Das Besondere an diesem Unternehmen ist ja, dass es wohl das einzige Fernsehprogramm sein wird, dessen Inhalt man im Vorhinein nicht kennt. Ja. Also es ist ein Programm, das nicht von seinen Machern verantwortet wird, sondern von den Zuschauern, von den Teilnehmern, von den Besuchern der Dokumenta, die da selbst ihr eigenes Programm gestalten.
Also es ist ja so, wir hatten auch richtig einen Vertrag mit dem ZDF. Und dieser Vertrag, also ist ja schon fast legendär, der Vertrag sieht halt die Ablieferung eines sendefähigen Signals vor, sonst nichts. Also über Inhalte wurde da nicht diskutiert, Fragen wurden nicht gestellt. Und das ist wirklich erstaunlich, dass so ein wildes Konzept, ich weiß noch nicht mal ehrlich gesagt, ob es ein richtiges Konzept jemals gegeben hat, mit dem wir uns da beworben haben oder so.
Wir hatten ja einen Vorläufer, also der Vorläufer war ja auch Minus-Delta-T, das Stein-Projekt, da hatten wir ja schon sehr früh mit Sponsoren gearbeitet, wo alle dagegen geschimpft haben. Also wir hatten ja auf dem LKW hatten wir ja auch stehen, milde Sorte, Tabakregie. Da haben dann Künstler, die heute von Philip Morris finanziert, gesagt, wir wären Prostituierte und so weiter. Wir waren es gewohnt, im Anzug, ohne Frühstück, ohne Kaffee getrunken zu haben, auf der Zugtoilette irgendwo in die Stadt zu fahren, Karel und ich, und dann da eine Verhandlung während 3 Stunden zu machen für ein Sponsoring. Das waren wir gewohnt. Also wir waren trainiert.
Ich fand sie super spannend. Super anstrengend im Umgang, weil es die Tendenz gab, doch eher zu verbergen, was sie tun. Also sie sind nicht gekommen und haben ganz klar gesagt, was sie vorhaben, sondern sie haben es eigentlich nur in groben Zügen skizziert und man konnte den Verdacht haben, dass sie das auch absichtlich gemacht haben.
Ich glaube, es waren noch Räume, die man temporär besetzen konnte und da agieren konnte, die viel mehr Auswirkungen gehabt haben.
Wir waren dazu da, auch Dinge mal auszuprobieren, Experimente zu machen. Das konnte man damals auch. Wir sind nicht erstickt unter Publikum. Die Verbreitung von Dreisat war noch eher homöopathisch. Man konnte einfach auch noch ein bisschen was ausprobieren.
Ich weiß, dass ich dann irgendwie beim ZDF angerufen habe und gesagt habe, wir hören jetzt auf zu senden, wenn ihr uns nicht 60.000 € überweist. Das haben die auch gemacht tatsächlich. Ich weiß gar nicht mehr, wie sowas heute geht eigentlich. Aber es war eine laufende Sendung, die auch geplant war und so. Und offensichtlich war das Erpresserpotenzial damals da und das haben die dann auch gemacht.
Ist ja genau diese Entwertung des Fernsehens, also diese Entwertung des, insofern auch, also, weil ja Dreisat auch eher diesem Kreis natürlich des Öffentlich-Rechtlichen, also das Fernsehen, das die Gesellschaft repräsentiert, das die Kultur repräsentiert, ein Medium, das für sich in Anspruch nimmt, das Leitmedium zu sein, inhaltlich meinungsbildend wie natürlich auch ökonomisch. Das war die letzte Phase davon.
Let me just mention that both Wolfgang Bergmann, who is in the clip, and Katrin Brinkmann, who is not, but who was the other person from ZDF working on the project, they are not here because they don't want to be here. They wanted to come, but she's at the... very unfortunately, she's in Leipzig at the documentary festival. He's on vacation, but you know, contrary to the statement we just heard, it didn't lead to a long hostility or anything like that. They really would have liked to come, and they're really proud of this project, I guess. Anything you would like to add to these statements, or?
Well, it was only 20,000, not 60,000, as we found out now.
Yeah. This I looked. I think at 7,000 pages of files by now. You know, because I got the whole correspondence from the project, and actually that's also sets it apart. If they would have done this 3 or 4 years later, most of the correspondences with the sponsors, with the television station, with the other participants would have been done with email, and none of that would be left. You know, I have no emails left from the 1990s. Maybe some other people are better organized than me, but this is really the great benefit of. It's also a lot of work because I have all this material, but it's also, you know, I sometimes can really reconstruct certain days. You know, and 10 o'clock in the morning they deliver the containers in Kassel, and at 12 o'clock there's a press conference, and you know, it's really quite detailed. I can almost stalk you historically. And this is also why we do this workshop tomorrow, because a lot of these, you know, documents that are so important to reconstruct such an activity are not there 10 years later.
So the whole project is documented on fading faxes?
Mostly, yeah. So they will be begun too.
I was thinking in the train today down to here, where actually the broadcast idea started off. And to trace it back, it started in Moscow. We have been on tour, on East European tour, have been video documenting the fall down of East Europe. And we arrived in Moscow, and I had a connection to the embassy. And then we somehow came to a conclusion we have to send the telex to the Chancellor of Austria. And the ambassador, the people who was managing that facility, they thought this is okay. And we have sent the telex to the I don't remember who was the Chancellor now actually, But we sent the telex to the Chancellor, and inside was the writing, "Dear Chancellor, if we don't get broadcasting time for Gogh TV at Ars Electronica in Linz, we will not return to Austria anymore. we become the first refugees." Yeah? So that fact, and I can follow this up because that story was multiplied in very funny cycles. Of course, the Chancellor didn't know what to do. He gave it to the press guy. The press guy didn't know either what to do. Then they had a crazy television director in Linz, in Austria, where the Ars Electronica was, and he was sending he was forwarding the telex to Leopoldstädter.
Hannes
Leopoldstädter. And Leopoldstädter, the first time it was click and he understood what was happening, because actually we had a plan to set up in the highest raising building a pirate radio television station that time. So Hannes Leopoldstädter then took everything in hand, and so that was the road down to cooperations with ZDF and Dreisat.
1989.
So we also said that in the clips there were previous projects, and especially you mentioned Hotel Pompino in the clip. Maybe you want to say a little bit.
Hotel Pompino was an interactive TV show together with actors, casted actors in the studio and the audience from the television, directing the actors in computer rooms, in interactive computer rooms in the studio.
Yeah. That was probably the first time you had quote-unquote virtual reality on television, or virtual studios. You know, today every news show is being broadcast from such a computer-generated studio, but at that time, you know, no public station in Germany, and I think probably in all of Europe did anything like that. Yeah. By the way, this legendary ZDF, that's what I originally wanted to say, this legendary ZDF contract, I didn't find. You know, I looked at 7,500 pages of files now, but this contract is not there, and I wonder why. Wonder what happened to it.
You have to have it in Mainz, you can find it.
No, I also, that's another thing, you know, public broadcasters, you would think, you know, diligently look and, you know, to preserve their programming and their files. It's gone. It's gone. It's nothing. Katrin Brinkmann tried to find it. They crashed it a couple of years ago. All right, let's look at one of these interactive, technically interactive segments of the show. Use the telephone in order to draw. It's even better than what Boyce provided. It's not that every person or every human being is an artist, every human being is a documenta artist, if you participate in that. So here you see two people draw together in a very elementary version of PowerPoint, Corel Draw. And I picked this particular segment. It's you know, it's just short clips. And I picked this segment here that was, I think, in the first week that the program was on. At that time there was the very little audience interaction. I think at this segment people couldn't even call in. And then somebody draws these two notes here and writes music department. And this is the name of the label of artist Daniel Pflum. He was very up-and-coming video artist then with his video loops set to techno music, and he also had his own label for minimal techno. And that was called Music Department. So, it might be him, we will never know. But, he knew some of the people who did the Piazzetta in Berlin, which we're going to talk about later. And so probably he was test driving your invention here. Any comments or remarks on that?
This?
On the drawing? Because it also changed during Documenta? Or during...
I mean, it's a very basic application which allows our users to call in. I mean, we had more than 100,000 callers per hour. I mean, that's just incredible. We crashed the telephone system several times.
But they wanted us to pay the bill too.
Yeah, that's another point. I mean, but anyway, what I find here quite interesting is, of course, normally Documenta is this high-rise art thing, and also this raises question of the authorship if two people call in, and in a way they are really Documenta artists. I mean, I don't want to delve too deep into that, but it could be an interesting thing. Maybe this was the first time that authorship was seen differently on Documenta in an interactive project.
And it might end up being a big headache for us because we want to make a film, of course, out of that. That's why we took all these clips. And who knows, you know, if Daniel Flom, once the film is finished, will ask us, you know, what about his copyright, you know, if he was that at all. So also all these callers, you know, they could claim that they were co-creators of the whole piece.
My lawyer would say the moment they called in, they knew what it was good for.
All right, let's look at another segment, which doesn't look so flashy, I think. This is Tazetta, and this, you know, doesn't look very flashy or very sexy at first, but this is actually the first time a German newspaper tries to make its content available by digital means. Maybe with the exception of BTX. I think there was also Spiegel who participated in that. But here, this is essentially, you know, browsing non-existent web yet. You again use the touchtone system, and this time to leaf through the edition of Taz newspaper that wasn't even published and at the stores yet. And this is by the way, with this ASCII art that looks a lot like Joey. Here it says, you know, which buttons you have to push in order to go from one story to the next. Here's a story with the headline, "Violence Against Tenants?" ? And the viewer who has called in, that symbol is the viewer who called in, and he will soon start to press buttons in order to go from story to story. Press 2, you go to the previous headline. If you press 5.
Sind da anscheinend 4 Telefonleitungen geschaltet.
So here somebody scrolls through the story, or to do Spiegel Online every day today, or the New York Times Online. And Pablo Escobar was a media star even back then.
Hi. Hello? Hey, Servus, oder was? Ey, ist da keine Online, oder was? Hier ist Thomas. Hey, ihr Nasen. Teil, ey. Zwick hier schon mal durch und Killer.
So, next story is... now they go through the different headlines that are available.
Basically, our interest was also maybe to have a common life on the news, but some things developed in the right directions in the comments we had, and some didn't work at all, or it took for weeks till people started reacting besides the way these people are doing now, who are just trying to communicate on the telephone with each other.
and didn't really interact on this news program, for example, or this content.
And some people were also so shocked being online suddenly after dialing for like 3 weeks.
On air.
Yeah, that they were on air suddenly, that they didn't know what to do.
All right, this was, I think, a very popular segment of the show that, by the way, was on every day from Monday to Friday from 11 o'clock until 10:30, and then in the nights from Friday to Saturday, and from Saturday to Sunday, they had the whole night starting usually at 1 o'clock or 1:30 until 6 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, there were these different segments, also, of course, these recording parts, but this was the part where you could steer a camera in the studio with your touch tone interface.
Es war, glaube ich, der heißeste Sommer seit in Kassel. Und man kann sich vorstellen, so ein Bergcontainer bis zum Rand vollgepackt mit Computern, auf denen viele Stunden am Tag die heißeste Sonne brennt. Das war die Hölle da drin. Und man, so tagsüber konnte man es kaum länger als eine Stunde da drin aushalten. Es war extrem laut, ozonbelastet und stinkig und feucht. Und also die Arbeitsbedingungen waren wirklich krass dort. Aber es war auch sehr, dann ging man raus und dann gab es Schatten und wir hatten unser Café dort und es war ein toller Sommer und die Stadt flirrte von Besuchern aus aller Welt und das war natürlich auch sehr mondän auf eine andere. Aber sobald man wieder in die Kiste musste, wurde es wirklich hart. Also es war aber harte körperliche Arbeit und man saß da schweißüberströmt in diesen Containern und musste echt leiden. Es war schon so eine, wie sagt man, eine Kameradschaft oder so ein gemeinsames, so wir fahren jetzt wieder ins Bergwerk Stimmung. Und alle natürlich auch extrem angefixt von der Herausforderung. Und jeder hatte an seinem Arbeitsplatz mit Entwicklungsproblemen zu kämpfen. Und da waren ja die Softwareentwickler und haben on the fly neue Programme entwickelt. Und die Spiele und das Orchester, das man zu mehreren bedienen konnte, das ist ja alles vor Ort entstanden während der Zeit der Dokumenta. Oder es gab rudimentäre Ansätze, die dann weiterentwickelt wurden. Und alle saßen dort und haben gearbeitet von früh bis spät. Und ja, okay, vielleicht ist mal irgendjemand an den See gefahren, einmal baden zwischendurch. Aber es war wirklich alle waren von der Arbeit beseelt und unheimlich ambitioniert und haben versucht, da was Einzigartiges zu stemmen, was es noch nicht gab. Und das ist ja auch einigermaßen geglückt.
Oh, hallo, wer ist denn da?
Let's take a break here again. Any comments or any remarks on the camera? The guy you just saw was the artist who constructed the camera, obviously.
Well, I think it's important to say one thing, it wasn't only on 3Sat and on German television, but it could be downloaded by satellites on other TV stations. So the TV was the feedback for the things what people were doing live. So it was in Baltic television, in Lithuanian television, on Czech television, and sorry? Dutch it was also. So they could download the program, and then was a problem of communication partly, because if somebody, I don't know, a kid from Germany who was 11 years old, he phoned in and started talking German, and then somebody else was there who was talking English or another language, and there was, it got also stuck. But on the other hand, after a while, many of these artists who had this myth of I want to be at the Documenta. So if you take the example of the 100, everybody is a Documenta artist. A lot of people try to use our Piazza Virtuale as a platform to show their performance and in their CV to say we were part of Documenta. So we have to discuss with some people, hey, you're not alone on the screen, you're interactive with one picture phone in Latvia, in the connection in Berlin, and you're not alone, so you have to interact. And so that was a very difficult learning process. And up to this moment, interactive art was defined by people like Weibel, you know, an interactive installation. Jeffrey Shaw, an installation was 50, 100,000 marks or something like that. And then we made interactive art with a telephone line where you just phoned in. And that was the difference. And then it wasn't the artistic copyright of one person, but there was a show, for example, for the death of John Cage, 12 hours, and I think 500-600 people participate. So what is this copyright? What is this art piece? What is this then? You can't have this classical artist signature anymore in this situation. And that changed a lot the thinking, but it's also a discussion point today. How do you make money out of a social media copyright? Who does it belong to? Who profits from it? So it was already that question, and how do we pay ourselves in that?
Well, that was, finally to say, that was the time where copyright was not a major point, because otherwise we will be maybe till today in jail for violating certain copyrights which people just feed it in audio, video, or text. And another important, this is a very important thing if you guys want to think about something new, because today copyright is a holy cow. If you do something, you get prosecuted by lawyers till you die, till you have to move out of your flat, and the bank is confiscating your account. Second thing, the industry, at that time, the condition of the industry was actually totally desperate. They didn't know that they pushed for technology, you know, the high steam engineers have been working. There was some
they didn't know what to do.
Imagination what that could be used, but nobody was there actually to use it. So let's say the German Telecom gave us some ISDN picture phones, incredibly expensive, and we distributed them everywhere. This was the first time where this equipment has been used in a more complex setup than just making animation for a movie. Yeah? The computers and everything. That combination, the technical combination, which basically Benjamin did, yeah, that was so unique that the control function of, let's say, of German Telecom was not existing at all. They installed fiber optic networks from that point to uplink on a satellite, then downlink to the broadcast. I mean, just imagine 2 meters. You can't pay for it today. Yeah? But that was the reason that there was a blackout of these techno guys, and they just signed and did it. Yeah?
They wanted applications.
Like every morning we got truckloads of equipment being shipped to us and to try it out, actually.
So, and I think to see that is in our times not possible, because you are running, if you do such project, you are running through marketing agencies, to marketing people who give the okay, they want to have a reason, they want to have a Einschaltquoten, they want to know how beneficial everything is and so on. That was not the question in that time, you know? And that is the lucky moment in history.
Since you mentioned the fact that other international TV stations were allowed to rebroadcast it,
There was also that contract, or quote unquote contract, I actually found, and it's really one sentence. You know, it says, to whom it may concern, those who have the right technical infrastructure to rebroadcast our program or this program are allowed to do so. You know, this is open source. This is open culture. You know, for once in public broadcasting, and they just gave it away, and that really added to the success. You know, it was also broadcast in Riga, for instance. And there it was so popular that a whole TV station developed out of it called Pizza TV, so that kind of continued with this concept of the call-in show, and they're still under a different name around today. So it really jumpstart also the media industry in certain countries, in certain circles. Yeah. But since you mentioned artists being wanting to participate, one group that's the part where we move on to the so-called piazzettas, because you didn't only have the container city in Kassel where the program was created, but you also had these international mini studios in a couple of German cities, in Eastern Europe, in Japan there was some interaction, all over Europe. And but one group that I found particularly interesting and who were also very interested in using these interactive elements of the show was Frauen and Technik from Hamburg. That Frauen and Technik translates to Women and Technology, and has a slightly negative band, you know, what do they know about it? They actually came up with some very challenging and provocative material for the show. You want to say anything about them before we run the clip, or let's watch it?
Ist da wer? Ja, sicher. Wie geht's? Ist da jemand, der mehr sagen kann als Hallo? Hallihallo. Hallihallo, Hallihallo. Steinfurt, Ecke weg. Ist da sonst nicht noch jemand? Hallo.
So this was kind of like this performance. That's one of the members of the group, Cornelia Solfang. Some of you might know her. And they had a 15-minute segment where she just sat there like this, meditating. And you can't watch the whole 50 minutes of it, but that really got people quite upset. You know, at first they tried to provoke her by insulting her or by calling her names. Then she doesn't react at all. Then they start to wonder if she's alive at all, or if this is a doll or a puppet. So I thought this was a very ingenious way to use this format.
Klar, die Kerstin aus Freiburg. Ist da noch jemand? Was? Wer ist noch drauf? Hier ist die Anja aus Gelsenkirchen.
Uns war relativ schnell klar, dass es um Strukturen und Kommunikation und von Fragen von wie bilden sich Strukturen, auch gesellschaftliche Strukturen im neuen Medium ab? Wie bilden sich Machtstrukturen in neuen Medien ab? Und wie kann man damit arbeiten und wie kann man da intervenieren? Das war relativ schnell unser Ansatz, weil ganz naiv, man kommt an eine neue Technik und denkt, das ist ja super, ist ja erstmal offen für alle. Die erste Erfahrung ist, nein, es ist nicht offen für alle, sondern es gibt schon wieder Gatekeeper, die sagen, irgendwie so macht man das. Sei es Kurt Alsleben oder sei es letztendlich auch von Gogh TV, wo es einfach de facto Männer waren, die den Ton angegeben haben. Und das war schon ein wichtiger Impuls zu sagen, nein, wir haben da nochmal einen anderen Blick oder wollen gucken, welches unser Blick sein könnte oder wie wir damit umgehen.
Ich würde gerne den Begriff des Performativen einführen an der Stelle, weil wir, egal ob mit Medien oder nicht, immer performativ gearbeitet haben. Und dieses Fernsehformat, das Live-Fernsehformat hat uns die Möglichkeit gegeben, sagen wir, performativ zu arbeiten mit einem anonymen Publikum erst, also nicht in einem Raum, wo man dann direkt interagiert, sondern mit einem anonymen Publikum und trotzdem unsere Provokationen, die wir gesetzt haben, das war ja sehr provozierend, was wir gemacht haben, da so ein Backchannel aufzuhaben und sagen, okay, wir setzen euch jetzt mal was vor, wir poken mal ein bisschen, was kommt also zurück, um auch was zu zeigen. Das haben wir irgendwie über Fax kommuniziert. Ne? Ich kann mich erinnern.
Also das ist über den gemeinsamen Besuch von Frauen und Technik von der Gruppe in Kassel beim Hauptquartier sozusagen.
Da gab es dann, wir haben unseren Besuch angekündigt Und dann gab es, ich weiß nicht mehr, auf welchem Kanal das kommuniziert wurde, aber es war dann so eine Meldung aus Kassel, die Mädels kommen, wir müssen duschen.
Nein, das weiß ich nicht mehr.
Genau.
Oh Gott.
Ja, aber
So, gender politics in 1992. Yeah. Anything you would like to say about that?
One important correction here.
We revise and reinterpret history.
No, the Frauen and Technik office was in our lab in Hamburg, and the invention of this woman group was basically Karl's idea. His girlfriend. And he invited his girlfriend, another one, and the lady from the computer department of the art school, and some of the students, and all together. So he was the founder of this feministic or group in some way, and they took it serious. They took it serious, but it was.
I don't have the clip available right now, but I explicitly asked about this version of the story of the founding of Frauen und Technik. It was totally denied. You know, it's not your invention at all. This is also one of the challenges for me, that you have to all these conflicting versions and memories of history. And of what actually happened, so let's leave it at that at this point. But other than that, is there something you want to say about this concept of the piazzettas or this particular piazzetta? Mike was very instrumental in organizing the international piazzettas. You mentioned that in one of the clips where you said you were basically traveling all the time, and when I read your diary, really, you were basically like an international manager of IBM or something. You were in a different city every other day.
I can see it from because being in Kassel, we had always a difficult fight with the piazzettas, because there was, from our point, 100% denial of the core conceptual idea. There was a representational desire. Yeah, that what I said in the beginning. There was still, even it was video art or performance art in video broadcasted too, and that was actually not the core idea of us. Yeah? And we understood that this is important in the balance of attracting different audiences and to attract other people, but in the same time we know it will create a huge discussion and problem with the so-called established video artists. Yeah? And that was the constant fight which we had in Kassel, and how to communicate this and how to get this through, that they are not just only using this for representation, selling their music, art piece, this and that. Yeah.
And I think also in this piazzetta situation, besides doing management, besides technical coordination and finding sponsors, the thinking of how to do something different was the biggest fight. And naturally, as Carla was saying, there was a lot of sabotage. I mean, the Czech department, they closed the door. They didn't let in any public people. They made their performance alone as artists. And even though they were public on television, but they didn't want to open up like we had the public access points, which were cameras in other places. And some, like Moscow too, partly was totally closed. And Frauen und Technik in Hamburg too, they were doing private performances and not inviting audience. There was our idea to have the public access point, a camera where everybody could come and have a possibility of access and to interact. And partly it was more understood by people who were not artists, who could handle it better than the people who explicitly came out of this artist context. Later on it changed, clear, but in all this developing process, it was partly very difficult.
In general, we have to say that we had about 30 what we call piazzettas, places around the world where they set up some studio from the very simple means like using this black and white still video that goes over a normal telephone line to ISDN, to satellite links We had in the US, in Japan, all over Europe, we had what we call piazzettas who brought in their own program, and we opened the possibilities for them to participate. One of the programs of Frauen und Technik in Hamburg was the Penis-Night-Spiele. So,
Penis Envy game.
Penis Envy games. I particularly can't remember what it was about, but I find the title quite interesting.
All right, I have a couple of more clips, but maybe this would be a good opportunity also for the audience to start to interact, because this is what it's also about. If you have any questions or remarks, this is your chance to...
Here on the left side.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually curious about if there was any organization before by Gogh TV, because there's so many people involved. There was Taz, the newspaper, there were many artists that we already know now. Oh, sorry. Do I have to repeat it?
Well, the organization was about 8 months before. We were.
How did you organize it?
Well, we said that, it's going to work. We're going to be at Documenta. We're going to have the budget, and we didn't have it yet. We didn't have the contract yet, and we started. And through the networks we had with people which are old, the old television networks, the old radio networks, the old, let's say, also Inframental networks, we had contacts everywhere. And we already asked them if they would be part of it. And the other thing was basically we needed a basic team, which was not so much artist orientated, because we had to program stuff and build stuff. So the artistic work was done by Carl, me, Benjamin, Vanasco, and other people who came in with their specified field. And the other ones were basically standby on the network, because it was for them the same thing. Yeah, will we get money? But it's at the Documenta. Okay, is there a budget? Is there not? This was all questions. It was standby till we got the contract and could start. And there was in parallel also a project which started and then failed, was with the art school in Kassel, with Professor Lobeck, but who had totally different ideas. So the collaboration which they tried to put us together didn't really work out. So they made a different project which wasn't interactive, but was some art TV kind of level of thing.
But this is something I looked at in the last couple of months in all the files, and it's, you know, it wasn't really that clear to me that you only got an agreement with Documenta in January. Documenta starts in June, so you had less than half a year. Yeah. And then I think the agreement with ZDF was signed in May, so 1 month before. You know, originally there was the idea to do it on the open access channel in Kassel, and then it spiraled from there. And also the budget, you know, I finally found, and it was basically, wasn't a no budget thing, but Dreisat paid very little. You would think they would sponsor this generously. No, they paid 35,000 marks at that time, you know, which is, you know, half the amount in euro today. And also Documenta did nothing at all. They didn't support you apart from letters of recommendation, but they didn't give any money at all. And then the Austrian government, the cultural, the federal curator gave some money. Yeah. You know, it was bits and pieces here and there, but somehow it kept you afloat for 6 weeks, and then the money was gone, and then there are all these faxes to, you know, all these people that might still have some fund there somewhere in the basement or in their desk, and otherwise, you know, you couldn't have finished the project.
But this question is in that way important. I found it to answer it. To say it up front, I think we didn't know what we are doing, and also we have been in the same position like the audience. The audience didn't know what to do with our program. We didn't know, and I mean we have been not skilled managers, not skilled whatsoever. We just the technical teams have been, of course, in their domain, they have been professional, yeah, and there have been some, we had experiences in collaboration with, let's say, with the Amsterdam-based Robotnik TV, where influences and inspiration came in. We had cooperation with Frigo in Lyon, where they had a radio station where Mike was working. So, and the projects before, which have been pirate TV projects, got a lot of support from these structures which already had experience. Let's say by broadcast, and Robotnik TV guys had experience how to broadcast. Yeah, what is the physical dependencies and so on. Very complex things where we had no clue about.
Other questions or remarks?
Just one thing, because it's getting too wild about sponsoring. We had one really crazy sponsor that was a company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems, and for some reason our craziness got them also crazy as well, and I think they sponsored a major part of the finances. And this company, just to name it clearly, was owned by Ross Perot, the candidate for presidency in the US at the time. And he owned this company, and for some reason, the German guy who was responsible for sponsoring was crazy enough to give us some money.
Other questions or remarks? Yeah.
I can't see anything.
Maybe, since you were saying no one was really knowing what they were doing, but did you have the feeling that after some time, especially when you say it started be called Hallo TV or something like that, that people would adapt and would kind of be more confident in interacting in this new medium?
Yeah, of course. The tension between the two sides, yeah, the one side who wants to entertain, the other side who doesn't want to entertain, the conceptual tension, and the development with the viewer together. Let's say, in my view, it was sometimes more a psychological session. Yeah, it was a psychic TV. And it would be, of course, fantastic if there would be some professional psychiatrists who analyze and talk, but that would be again entertainment, and it would be again a kind of pushing the envelope in a different direction. No, I would say by doing and going forward with the whole infrastructure, is a huge infrastructure project. Yeah? Everybody learned and experienced and set it in motion again, and in all kinds of departments and levels. Yeah?
We should say that there were dedicated fans. There was also, apart from the shows we already mentioned, there was also a daily show that was broadcast over Olympus satellite. And the people who watched that were, of course, techies, nerds, you know. They were into satellites and they discovered this program, and they had also much more time to talk. So you can really see how they become this virtual reality, this virtual community. They become friends. They get to know each other. They decide to come to Kassel and to meet there, you know, to visit you. And then in the end, one of them comes up with the idea to collect money to have the show continue even after Documenta is over. I mean, this was obviously a minority. That was not the audience at large, but there were these people who really, you know, got a kick out of the program. Other questions or remarks? If this is not the case, maybe we can watch one final clip, and that's kind of like a technical experiment here, because this is a first attempt to connect with NHK in Japan, NHK being the Japanese ARD, the public television station, and I think that was also to prove to them that it actually worked. And yeah, so it's very, I don't know, very playful and very improvised, and I find it quite touching, and it's also kind of like this crowd pleaser, I guess.
I guess this is, okay.
You see me now? This is me.
So this is in the containers in Kassel. You can see the Provinzialen back.
Axel and Ole again. And this is Michael. And this is Christian.
Hello. Looks like he had a selfie stick already.
Now comes Jan.
Yin and yang.
Okay, we do some tests now. Okay, you get some new image now.
Yeah, there's a lot of monitors. What are they?
Many monitors. What are they for?
These are the monitors where we see all the images that we generate for the. What's happening now? I show you something.
Sie haben es jetzt.
You see it now? This is.
Yeah, there's a keyboard.
Okay. You have a beeper now?
Beeper?
No, answering machine.
Yeah.
All right, so
so simple happiness can be. So simple happiness can be.
Maybe an interesting detail about what is still today a problem is the delay of satellite. Is sometimes when we had the musical programs and people were playing from at home, you could never synchronize the beat correctly, besides if you were a musician, because it was almost half second to a second delay. And today with streaming, you also have delays up to 20 seconds if you do a live stream or something. So interacting is still today a problem of precise synchronization and also transmissions over distance. You have this time-lapse problem, which makes the communication more difficult, especially when you have here like the room sound with the transmission sound, then it disturbs because it mixes.
I think you actually, in some instances, even had better options to interact. Like, for example, there's Frauentechnik did this one segment where they asked callers, you again saw one of the members of the group sitting in front of the camera, and the audience was asked to tell jokes until she cannot help but laugh anymore. And this is on the internet, on YouTube, this is a very popular format today. Try to make me laugh, but they read, the jokes from the influencers or the YouTubers who do that, read the jokes from their smartphones as they're getting them via Twitter or via email, but here you had a much directer interaction. And of course, people managed to make a crack up in the end, but it looks much more natural than these influencers reading the jokes from the phone and then, they might or they might not laugh.
Maybe one interesting detail is the question was, how did we organize this whole project? And for example, I remember sitting one evening in the office, and NHK called, a guy from Japan called and wanted to understand what we do there. And suddenly we are in contact with this really important broadcaster in Japan. And what happened, what we saw here was like the first trial. A beeper, by the way, is a small box where you can push buttons, and it's like a touch-tone telephone. But if you don't have a touch-tone telephone, you use this beeper. It was used a while for controlling answering machines and so on. So they got this thing, they tested it, and it worked. And they were totally flashed in this moment. And what happened later is they invited us to go to Japan. So 3 people of Gogh TV went to Tokyo actually, and we had this really big studio of NHK, and we did 3 days of interactive broadcast in Japan, crashed the Tokyo telephone system several times, and it's still there. I mean, I met a guy, this Ars Electronica, who told me about his past experience at the time. And I think projects of that scale and of that fascination create their own possibilities, and people just want to participate, and this is how it happened. So I would describe at least my personal feeling was more or less of that of sleepwalker. Is you don't know what you're doing, but you know that you're doing the right thing, and you don't fall.
This is a beautiful way to end the evening. I guess this clip I just showed is the office they had at the time in Hamburg, and you can see all the equipment there. You know, it was really, I mean, it was mostly off-the-shelf material. It wasn't really high-tech stuff. It wasn't professional by broadcaster standards, but it was obviously a lot, and it was much more once you were in Kassel because you got even more material. But this is, since you asked about the organization, it wasn't like they organized it from the basement or something. There they had already set up this lab, and they had already they had strong support from Hamburg, by the way. They were also an important sponsor for the show. So yeah,
the lab existed in this format. You see it since '89, and before it was more or less mobile, or we had different places where we could work or edit or develop, and then we had also the mobile media bus for a while, end of the 80s, and then in '89 we got our fixed lab in Hamburg, and that was the kind of basic place where we could work out of it.
The place, by the way, still exists now. Is mostly tailors and all kinds of artisans who work there.
Yeah, it's in St. Georg in Hamburg, and it's a publicly funded or co-funded place for handicraft. And we at the time got the space only because we were like weaving the media. That was like the excuse somehow, and we got this space and worked there for about 5 years.
All right, let's wrap it up for today. Thank you very much for coming, both our guests and the audience. You can stick around, we have some wine, and you can talk to our guests. Please come back tomorrow. We start at 9:30 with a presentation by Michael Connor from Rhizome. He came all the way from New York only for one night. He's going to fly back tomorrow after his talk. So please be around for that, and then all day until 5 o'clock we have the workshop on the preservation of digital media. And I guess a lot of you work in digital media, so I think that should be of interest to you. What's going to happen with the stuff you create in the long run. All right, so I see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.